During the holiday back home, I unexpectedly caught my stepmother and paralyzed father in the act. I didn't expect my father, due to his physical disability, to say that he was delaying my stepmother, pleading with me, saying that it wasn't easy for her to manage this family, asking me to help her feel the joy of being a woman. Sounds of hurried breathing and muffled moans from a man and a woman came from the bedroom. I stood at the bedroom door, peering through the gap, my eyes wide open. My stepmother was on top of my father, rubbing back and forth, making sounds that made one blush and heart race. My stepmother, in her 30s, still had charm, her white body curvaceous. Especially her figure, which could give any man an extremely strong impact. She was like a ripe peach, making one unable to resist wanting to take a bite. My name is Li Tao, and I haven't graduated from university yet. My father was paralyzed in bed from a car accident 6 months ago, and my stepmother has been taking care of him. After a long-awaited holiday, I thought I would come back to help her for a few days, but I didn't expect to see this scene as soon as I entered the house. My father's lower body couldn't move at all, and couldn't cooperate with my stepmother. The mature and charming stepmother twisted her soft waist, her large breasts shaking continuously in front of her, biting her pink lips, soft moans escaping gently. It was evident that my stepmother hadn't been satisfied recently. Unfortunately, my father couldn't satisfy her at all. I looked at my stepmother's curvaceous figure, my face flushed, and my body clearly reacted differently. My heart racing, I accidentally bumped into the door, which swung open completely. My stepmother heard the noise and instantly stopped. When she turned to see me, she froze for a moment, then hurriedly grabbed her clothes and put them on haphazardly as she got off the bed. "Xiao Tao, why are you back?" My father quickly turned his head away, shamefully closing his eyes. My stepmother picked up the blanket to cover my father and hurriedly left the bedroom. "I'll go make you dinner first." As she passed by me, her flushed face made my heart race, and a wave of fragrance hit me. The charm of a mature woman was even more enticing than the school beauties. After my stepmother left, my father slowly turned his head, asking me to close the bedroom door. I walked to the bedside and sat down, feeling a bit awkward. My father struggled to sit up, and I quickly placed 2 pillows behind him to help him lean against the headboard. Sighing deeply, my father looked at me and said, "Xiao Tao, you know how your mother has treated you all these years, right?" I didn't know why my father suddenly brought this up, but he was speaking the truth. Since my stepmother married into our family, she treated me like her own son. Usually, she was busy both inside and outside the house, never letting me do chores, always buying clothes and supplies in advance. She even discussed with my father not to have more children, just to give all her love to me. Such a stepmother was simply perfect and impeccable. "Dad, I will repay Mom." As I spoke of repayment, I thought of my stepmother's voluptuous body, my heart racing, but I quickly shook my head to dismiss such thoughts. My father held my hand, a tear rolling down his cheek. "Your mother hasn't enjoyed any blessings since marrying into our family. At least I could satisfy her in that aspect before, but now that I've had an accident." At this point, my father seemed to hesitate. "You saw it just now, your mother has needs too, but I can't feel anything, and I can't make her comfortable. Can I ask you? Can you help her out?" Before my father finished speaking, I felt inexplicably excited, and a vague guess formed in my heart. "Tomorrow is your mother's birthday. Can you satisfy her once, let her enjoy the ultimate joy of being a woman?" My father's eyes sparkled with hope as he looked at me. To be honest, my stepmother's figure was truly perfect, and many nights I would watch adult films, her face appearing in my mind. But my father really made this request, which was hard for me to accept at first. I had this thought, but I didn't have the courage. Dad, she's my mom, I can't do that. My voice trembled a bit. But my father tightly gripped my arms. She's just your stepmother. You don't need to feel any psychological burden. No one will know if we don't talk about it. She's taken care of you for so many years. Don't you want to repay her? I was swayed by my father's words. Not just because of my inner feelings and fantasies about my stepmother, but also to repay her kindness. Looking at my father's expectant gaze, I ultimately agreed. I just worried that my stepmother wouldn't agree. My father asked me to buy some of my stepmother's favorite dishes and some wine early tomorrow morning to give her a perfect birthday. Because of my promise to my father, I felt a bit uneasy when I saw my stepmother while going out to eat. My stepmother might have felt awkward seeing me too, as she kept serving me food, urging me to eat more. But she didn't even look up at me. She didn't ask about my life at school like she used to. I quickly finished eating, my heart racing, and returned to my room. That night, I was awakened by a feeling of suffocation and groggily walked outside the bathroom, hearing some noise inside. Pressing my ear against the door, I recognized my stepmother's voice. She was inside. Perhaps she hadn't been satisfied during the day and worried about my father thinking too much, so my stepmother could only sneak into the bathroom alone at night. I originally didn't dare to repay my stepmother, but now seeing her tempting appearance, I was determined to let her feel what a real man was like tomorrow. I had to work hard. After a long time, the sounds inside finally stopped. I quickly hid back in my bedroom, and when I heard my stepmother return to the bedroom, I came out again. The bathroom was filled with the lingering fragrance of my stepmother. It made me wide awake. After returning to my bedroom and watching adult films for a while, I finally released my pent-up feelings. That night, I had a long dream where my teacher turned into my stepmother. We had a great time together. The next day, when my stepmother went to work, I followed my father's instructions and bought her favorite dishes and 2 bottles of red wine. When my stepmother came home from work and saw the table full of dishes and the cake beside it, she was instantly moved to tears. The awkwardness from yesterday vanished. Halfway through the meal, my father signaled me with his eyes, and I quickly poured a glass of wine and handed it to my stepmother. Mom, you've worked hard all these years. I toast to you. My hand trembled slightly, worried that my stepmother wouldn't accept it. Stepmom smiled with relief, didn't think much of it, picked up her glass and drank it all in one go. After finishing one glass, Dad filled it up for her again. Jian, you've worked hard these years. I'm sorry for you. I'll drink a glass with you. Stepmom could only drink another glass. At first, it was Dad and I constantly pouring her drinks, but later, perhaps because she was really troubled and wronged, Stepmom actually took the initiative to drink. One glass after another went down, and Stepmom's face turned rosy, already showing signs of drunkenness. Sitting too long is uncomfortable. You all eat slowly. I'm going back to rest for a while. Dad gave me a look, signaling me to help him to the bedroom. Before going in, Dad patted my arm hard. Xiao Tao, it's up to you this time. I nodded and returned to the dining room. Stepmom's face was even redder. Her beautiful fox-like eyes were raised, her gaze hazy, exuding an indescribable charm. I felt my body starting to change. Xiaotao, come. Come drink with mom. Stepmom stood up, holding her glass, swaying unsteadily, her soft front trembling with her movements. With one misstep, the waves were about to crash down. She didn't hold her wine glass steady, and as she walked, red wine spilled in front of me. It flowed down from my back. Stepmom still retained a bit of clarity, and seeing this scene, she panicked instantly. Xiaotao, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Let mom wipe it for you. Stepmom's face turned even redder in her panic, her hands rubbing back and forth in front of me. The fire inside me grew stronger. Until stepmom kept going down, her hands touched. She froze for a moment, instinctively blurted out, "Why is it so big here?" I couldn't stand her expression, and now hearing stepmom say this, my face turned red with embarrassment. After all, I was still a bit worried, but stepmom came to her senses and quickly took a step back. But whether it was because she was drunk or for some other reason, her body was a bit weak, and as she stepped back, she was about to fall. I hurriedly stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her waist. Her soft waist felt like a piece of white tofu, smooth and delicate. Stepmom moved in my arms, the big soft thing pressed against me, making me even more restless. I heard stepmom's breathing start to quicken, mixed with the aroma of wine filling my nostrils. It reminded me of a phrase, soft and fragrant like jade. Stepmom realized and tried to break free from my embrace. I held her tight and walked towards the sofa. Mom, let's eat cake first. After placing her on the sofa, I turned to get the cake, but thinking of Dad's request, I looked down again, and the fire in my heart could no longer be suppressed. The cake was placed on the coffee table. I lit the candles and let stepmom make a wish. With the lights off, looking at the swaying flame and her charming face, along with that ripe figure, I couldn't help but swallow hard. When stepmom blew out the candles, I didn't turn on the lights but instead, using the light from outside, I scooped a piece of cream from the cake and smeared it on stepmom's face. Stepmom smiled. Xiaotao, turn on the lights. I'm going to take a piece of cake to your dad. I didn't turn on the lights, but gradually leaned closer to her. Mom, Dad is already resting. I want to eat cake. Stepmom immediately wanted to cut the cake for me, but I pressed her down on the sofa. I'm fine with just this part. After saying that, I gritted my teeth and lowered my head, gently licking the cake. Stepmom's body trembled involuntarily, instinctively wanting to push me away. Xiaotao, your dad is still in the room. What are you trying to do? I held her tightly with both hands, leaned close to her ear and whispered 2 words. Do you? Bit by bit, I finished eating the cake off her face, then moved to her pink lips. I want you to taste the cake too. She stopped struggling, her body gradually softened. Soft moans escaped from the gaps in her mouth. No, Xiaotao. Hearing that tantalizing voice, I knew she couldn't take it anymore. I let go of my inhibitions. My hands gripped her tighter in front of her, and I finally felt the enticing fullness. Her body grew hotter, infecting me, making me feel like I was about to explode. One hand found her waist, pulling down her pants. At that moment, I felt extremely satisfied. I had her. Stepmom was really in my grasp. I could have a passionate pleasure with her. How could I, a mere boy, win over this beautiful and voluptuous woman? I saw stepmom's eyes hazy, seemingly very expectant. She even wrapped her legs around me, starting to actively respond. Bang, bang, bang. The knocking on the door suddenly rang out, breaking the ambiguous atmosphere in the room. I didn't want to open the door, just wanted to continue what was left unfinished. But the knocking continued incessantly, showing no signs of stopping. Stepmom became a bit more sober and tried to push me away. I had no choice, though I was anxious. I could only stand up from the sofa and walk over to turn on the lights. Stepmom had already tidied up her clothes and came to the door, looking out through the peephole. It was the property management. Opening the door, the property manager handed Stepmom a red envelope. "This is our community's advertising revenue from last month." This community was where Stepmom moved after marrying my dad. She used her savings, plus the money from selling her old house, to buy this place. It was simply because this community was convenient for schooling, and the property management was also quite good. Stepmom said that when I get married in the future, they would use this house as my wedding house, and they would move out. My biological mother passed away early, and I don't have deep memories of her. All the maternal love I received came from Stepmom. She really thought about me. However, just now I almost. The cold wind from the open door blew on me, making me more awake. I suddenly realized that my scheming to possess Stepmom might not be what she wanted. Repaying kindness is just talk. In reality, didn't I just want to possess her? No matter how I looked at it, Dad and I had already discussed it, and I just wanted to toy with her. While I was thinking about this, Stepmom had already closed the door. She blushed and handed me the red envelope. "You take this money to spend. You're going to college now. You should also get a girlfriend. Xiaotao, we can't do that. Your dad is still here." As she spoke, Stepmom stuttered and was about to walk back inside. I know my stepmother misunderstood me. She might think that I am experiencing the stirrings of adolescence and need an outlet for my emotions, which is why I would want to date. Not wanting my stepmother to misunderstand me, I grabbed her arm. "Mom, actually, this is something I discussed with Dad. I just want to repay your kindness, and also, I really do like you, Stepmom. I know you are enduring a lot of pain. If you don't mind, My stepmother was taken aback by my bold statement. Her skin flushed and she slowly pulled away from my hand, pretending to be angry. "This is really nonsense. I am your stepmother. Your thoughts. Your dad thinks the same. You're already grown up, yet you're still messing around." Dad, hearing our conversation, wheeled himself out from inside. "Tian, don't blame Xiaotao. I asked him to do this. Just let Xiaotao help you. I know you often go to the bathroom at night. I can't help you, but Xiaotao can." Stepmom walked over to Dad, her head bowed, her full body trembling slightly, and she shook her head firmly. "Changzi, I treat Xiaotao like my own son. If something really happens with him, how will I face others in the future?" As she spoke, Stepmom shot me a glance. I was startled by that look. Dad didn't give up. "Only we know about this. As long as we don't say anything, how will others know?" Stepmom's attitude was very resolute. "No way." I looked at Stepmom's snow-white neck, wishing I could pounce on her and lick it. But Stepmom disagreed and shot me a glance that reminded me of her mother's authority. Forcing Stepmom's thoughts to fade, a complex feeling of affection rose within me. I knew continuing like this was meaningless and would only make her feel guilty, possibly even anger her. Seeing Dad about to say more, Stepmom pushed the wheelchair back to the bedroom. I endured the heat and frustration, tidied up the table, and when I returned to my bedroom, I heard muffled crying coming from their room. Dad seemed to still be pleading with Stepmom to agree to this matter, but stepmom's attitude had not changed at all. I don't know how long it took, but the crying in the room lessened, and stepmom came out pulling a suitcase. Seeing me standing at the door, stepmom dropped a sentence and left. I have to go on a business trip for the next few days. Xiao Tao, take good care of your dad and try to persuade him not to overthink. It's over. The situation I was worried about has happened. Hearing the door open and close, I sighed, walked to Dad's bedside, and handed him a tissue. Dad, I think it's better to let it go. If Mom doesn't agree, we shouldn't force her. Dad wiped his tears and slapped his leg heavily. I owe her. I made her suffer by being with me. Xiao Tao, your mom has raised you for so many years. You must repay this kindness. To stabilize Dad's emotions, I promised him that I would find an opportunity to do this later. Deep down, I even started to think if I really had to use force. Otherwise, it seemed like stepmom was about to drift away from me. Only then did Dad feel relieved and soon fell asleep. Back in my bedroom, the scene on the sofa kept replaying in my mind, and I couldn't fall asleep no matter how hard I tried. In the end, I could only find comfort in a short film. For several consecutive days, stepmom really didn't come back. I became increasingly afraid that the mature and charming stepmom would leave me. But she would send me text messages every day, reminding me of the things to pay attention to while taking care of Dad. After these few days of care, I finally realized how tired stepmom usually was. Besides taking care of Dad, she also had to work to earn money. The burden of life was all on her alone, just for us who had no blood relation. I made up my mind to make stepmom comfortable, to be filial to her, and not let her leave me. One day, I went out to buy groceries and happened to run into an old man selling vegetables at the entrance of the community, so I bought vegetables from him. I also returned home a bit earlier than usual. As soon as I opened the door, I heard voices coming from Dad's bedroom. Don't worry, I will definitely do what I promised you. Bai Qian isn't home these days. We'll continue the plan when she comes back. Anyway, I don't care what method you use. The money and the house must be mine. Got it, got it. Hurry up and leave. Xiao Tao will be back soon. I was confused. Bai Qian is stepmom's name. What plan is Dad talking about? What are they going to do to stepmom? Before I could hear clearly, I saw a woman walking out of Dad's bedroom. She was heavily made up, but it couldn't hide her harsh face. Her barrel-shaped waist was squeezed into a tight dress, making her look somewhat ridiculous. She was quite different from stepmom. When she saw me, she was startled. What are you doing here? Hearing her words, I found it somewhat amusing. This is my home. Shouldn't I be the one asking you that? Dad heard the noise and came out, quickly smiling and explaining. Xiao Tao, why are you back so soon? This is my cousin from my hometown. She wants to come and be my nanny. The fat woman quickly reacted and smiled, saying, yes, 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 I just want to find a job. I had a bad impression of this fat woman, not because of her appearance or figure, but because she gave off a very harsh feeling. We don't need a nanny in our house. You should leave. The fat woman frowned but didn't say much more and pushed the door out. Dad's gaze was fixed on me as he tentatively asked, Xiao Tao, did you hear what we were talking about just now? I immediately shook my head. No, I just got back and saw that woman coming out of your room. Dad, taking care of you is enough for me. We don't need a nanny. Dad saw that I answered very straightforwardly and didn't ask more, just nodded. I just thought she was pitiful, a widow with a child, so I let her come over to take a look. Since you don't like her, then forget it. He wheeled himself back inside. I went to the kitchen and patted my rapidly beating chest. I had a gut feeling that something was off between Dad and that fat woman, which is why I instinctively lied and didn't reveal what I heard. But Dad is paralyzed in bed. Even if he really wanted something, he would be powerless. Moreover, stepmom is much better than that woman, which made me relax a bit. Maybe I heard it wrong from a distance. They were just talking about stepmom. After taking care of Dad and putting him to sleep at night, I returned to my bedroom. I thought this matter would end here, but unexpectedly the fat woman came again the next day. At that time, I had just returned home after buying groceries and heard a commotion inside. When I opened the door, the noise instantly stopped. I saw the fat woman sitting on the sofa, crossing her legs, looking very much like the mistress of the house. Dad was sitting in a wheelchair, looking very cautious. Seeing me back, Dad gestured for me to push him to the bedroom. After closing the door, Dad looked at me with a pleading expression. Xiao Tao, can you let your Aunt Hoi stay at our house for a few days? She'll leave once she finds a job. I really didn't like that fat woman and was puzzled by my dad's attitude towards her. Dad, isn't she just a relative? Why are you trying to please her so much? Dad grabbed my arm and shook his head. Your Aunt Hoi has helped me before, so consider it my way of repaying her. Just let her stay for a few days, okay? I had never heard of this before and didn't even know Dad had such a relative. But since Dad said so, I could only agree. The fat woman didn't treat herself as an outsider at all, sitting on the sofa doing nothing, all day long eating sunflower seeds and watching TV, with sunflower seed shells thrown everywhere. Since she was a relative on Dad's side, and with Dad's words, I didn't say much, thinking I could endure it for a few days. But every time I saw her, I couldn't help but think of my stepmother. When my stepmother was at home, the house was always clean. How could it be so messy now? Until the third day, seeing that she had no intention of going out to find a job, I became a bit anxious, especially since school was about to start, so I messaged my stepmother to tell her that an uninvited guest had come to our house. I still hoped to resolve this matter while I was at home. Otherwise, my stepmother's kindness would only lead her to endure it. My stepmother quickly replied, saying she would come back tomorrow. I told Dad about my stepmother's return, and he just said without any happy emotions, but rather seemed troubled. Didn't he always feel guilty towards my stepmother? Why did he seem unhappy now that he knew she was coming back? No matter how Dad thought, I was very happy. After thinking for a moment, Dad finally spoke, Xiao Tao, when your mom comes back, can you continue to? Before he could finish, I interrupted him. Dad, it's not that I don't want to repay her, but Mom doesn't agree, so let's not force her. I had already made up my mind. I couldn't help Dad with this kind of thing anymore. Because of that incident, there was some awkwardness between my stepmother and me, and I wanted to clarify things with her and return to how it was before. Seeing that I was determined, Dad knew it was useless to say anything more and ultimately stopped insisting. What surprised me was that on the night I told Dad about my stepmother's return, Dad said something to that fat woman, and she actually left. When my stepmother returned the next morning, she didn't run into her. After a few days apart, my stepmother looked a bit haggard, with red bloodshot eyes, clearly not having rested well. This made me feel even more guilty, regretting that I had agreed to Dad's ridiculous request. I should have found another opportunity to slowly test my stepmother. I took the initiative to help my stepmother carry her suitcase to the bedroom and eagerly served her tea and water. My stepmother also noticed my intentions, smiled, and patted my shoulder. "Xiaotao, the past is behind us. Let's live well from now on." I responded with an secretly thinking that I still wanted to win her over, but I had to take it slow. "You're such a wonderful woman. I won't let you slip away." My stepmother took the initiative to go to the kitchen and cook a meal. While we were eating, she asked about the fat woman. Dad paused with his chopsticks for a moment, but quickly returned to his usual explanation. "Just a cousin from the countryside, came to the city to find a job, stayed at our house for a couple of days, and will move out once she finds a job." My stepmother didn't ask any more questions and turned to me to ask about school. The familiar feeling returned, and the gap between my stepmother and me completely melted away. Dad also poured us both a glass of juice and said with relief, "I was confused before, but thankfully it's all in the past. It's better for us to live well as a family than anything else." The 3 glasses clinked together, symbolizing that those matters were all behind us. After dinner, I stood up to help clear the table, but suddenly felt a bit dizzy. It felt like I was drunk, my head was spinning, and my body inexplicably started to feel hot. I hadn't had a drop of alcohol. I wanted to tell my stepmother and Dad about this, but I found that my stepmother, like me, had an unnatural flush on her face. Just like when she got drunk on her birthday. Only Dad still seemed normal. My stepmother stood up, swaying, causing a tremor in front of her. I hurried to support her, and when my hands touched her warm body, the suppressed desire inside me surged again. The remaining awareness told me that this was not the good moment I had envisioned. But my body uncontrollably wanted to rip my stepmother's clothes apart and consume her as soon as possible. "Xiaotao, your mom is feeling very uncomfortable. You need to help her." Dad suddenly spoke up beside me, making me turn to look. Seeing the table in front of Dad filled with juice, I suddenly thought of a possibility. The juice my stepmother and I drank was problematic. Just now, Dad poured the juice, and we didn't pay attention, drinking it all, and then we started feeling unwell. Could it be that Dad was still not giving up? Even now, he was still thinking about that matter of repaying kindness. While I was pondering this in my heart, my stepmother tightly hugged me. She looked very uncomfortable, one hand unbuttoning her shirt and pressing tightly against me. Her legs also wrapped around mine. I was already feeling hot all over, and being teased like this made it even harder to bear. I just wanted to pin her down. However, having finally broken the ice with my stepmother, if I did this again, we might not be able to interact in the future. Should I take advantage of my stepmother's situation? No, I still had to find another opportunity to win over my mature and beautiful stepmother. I wanted to ask Dad for help, but I saw him take out his phone and actually started recording a video of us. "Dad, what are you doing?" My usually gentle dad had a smug smile on his face. "Of course, I'm recording a video of you too so that everyone knows what kind of people you really are." Seeing my dad change so quickly, I felt a bit strange. "I'm your own son." Dad ignored me and made a phone call. "Come over, the plan succeeded." The plan succeeded? In a flash, I remembered what I heard that day, something about a plan targeting Bai Qian. So that's what it meant. I pinched my leg with all my strength to keep myself awake, then pushed my stepmother away. But my stepmother's consciousness was gradually fading, and she kept mumbling, so hot, I'm so uncomfortable. Help me. I had just pushed her away when she quickly clung to me again. Dad watched all of this coldly, even recording a video. Until the door was opened from the outside, I saw a fat woman walk in, along with a boy a few years younger than me, who seemed to understand something. After the fat woman entered, she looked my stepmother up and down and snorted through her nostrils. Sure enough, a seductive fox, look at her, as if she hasn't eaten in years. She sat down on the sofa, crossed her legs, and looked at the young boy. Son, go pull that seductive fox's clothes apart, let her have some fun with this kid, so I can get a good video. When she wakes up, she'll probably be too embarrassed to see anyone, haha. The young boy walked over and immediately tried to rip my stepmother's clothes off. I wanted to push him away with all my might, but the drug hadn't worn off, and I had no strength. I was no match for him at all. The young boy tore open my stepmother's shirt, revealing her vaguely visible snow peaks. The young boy's eyes widened instantly, swallowing saliva continuously, even wanting to reach out and feel the size. I gritted my teeth and forcefully opened his hand. This action angered him, and he didn't care about my stepmother anymore, immediately kicking me. He knocked me to the ground and started punching and kicking me. Normally, two boys wouldn't be my match. But I had no strength now, so I could only cover my head and endure the pain. I saw my dad sitting in a wheelchair, the dad who used to dote on me, actually watching this scene so calmly. He looked at me as if I were a stranger. This left me puzzled. How could a person change so quickly? Soon, the fat woman sitting on the sofa answered my confusion. Liu Tiang, I have to say, your heart is really ruthless. Even if you raise a dog, you should develop feelings. This Liu Tao is your son whom you've raised for so many years. Can you really be so heartless? Liu Qiang snorted, he's not my biological son. What's there to feel sorry for? Besides, isn't it all for you too? Not a biological son. This sentence hit me like a heavy hammer on my head. I never expected that I was not Liu Qiang's biological son. What on earth was going on? The fat woman chuckled, well, if it weren't for your ex-wife being unable to give birth, you wouldn't have adopted a child. Now it's good you have a biological son. Once we film their video, this seductive fox will leave with nothing, and all this house and money will be ours. Don't worry, my son and I will take care of you. I felt even more dizzy. Biological son, adopted son, this sudden big secret was hard for me to accept. On the other side, although my stepmother was confused, she instinctively rushed over when she saw the young boy hitting me. The young boy stopped hitting me when he saw my stepmother coming and turned to pull her towards the bedroom. I knew what he wanted to do. Although I wasn't Liu Qiang's biological son, my stepmother was sincere to me, and I couldn't let her be defiled by someone else. I struggled to stand up, wanting to chase after him to stop him. But I couldn't get up. Just when my heart felt dead and I was in extreme despair, the door was forcefully slammed open. Seeing the most reassuring blue uniform, I breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the police arrived in time. A couple of days ago, I went grocery shopping and encountered a legal promotion on the way, so I downloaded a new type of emergency reporting app. With just a click of a shortcut key, I could immediately locate and report. Just now, seeing the juice cup in front of Dad, I guessed that something had been added to the juice my stepmother and I drank, so I pressed the shortcut key on my phone in my pocket. That's why the police arrived in time. The tense nerves finally relaxed, and watching the female police officer help my stepmother put on her shirt, I completely fainted. When I woke up again, I was in the hospital. My stepmother was guarding my bedside, and when she saw me wake up, she shed tears of excitement. "Xiao Tao, you scared me to death. If anything happened to you, I would feel guilty for the rest of my life." I wiped her tears. "Don't cry, Mom, I'm fine." "Are you okay?" My stepmother nodded and told me that she woke up quickly after being sent to the hospital. I was slow to wake up because I was highly tense and had been beaten by that young boy, leaving my body weak. The young boy had been taken to the police station for intentional injury. The fat woman had come to the hospital, wanting to get me to sign a mediation letter, but when she saw I hadn't woken up, she left. She would probably come again. I definitely wouldn't sign the mediation letter, but I urgently wanted to know one answer. "Mom, am I Liu Qiang's biological son?" My stepmother seemed not to expect me to ask this, and after thinking for a moment, she told me the truth. "You are actually the child adopted by Liu Qiang and his ex-wife." At that time, I felt that Liu Qiang didn't mind his ex-wife's inability to give birth and was so responsible for an adopted son, so I married him without hesitation. Knowing the truth from my stepmother left my heart unsettled for a long time. My stepmother probably didn't know about the fat woman and the boy, so I didn't ask her, but instead asked her to take me home. When we got home, the fat woman was also there. She was crying and scolding Liu Qiang, telling him to get me to issue a mediation letter. When she saw me and my stepmother come in, the fat woman hurried over. "Liu Tao, hurry up and go to the police station to clarify. Just say these injuries were self-inflicted, and let them release Xiao Feng." Listening to her commanding tone, I just found it funny. "Who are you? Why should I listen to you?" The fat woman's face was so angry that the flesh was shaking, and she snorted angrily. "I tell you, the video of you and that sly fox is still in my hands. Behave and listen to me, or I will send it out for others to see, you two dog men and women." She said this while shaking her phone, full of threats. Of course, I couldn't be threatened by her, so I said, "Then hurry up and send it. I won't write the mediation letter, but please get out of my house now." If others found out about the video of me and my stepmother, I would just go along with it and be with her. The fat woman was stunned when she saw that I was not threatened at all, and could only turn to Liu Qiang. Liu Qiang had a gentle smile on his face, as if the calm I saw when I was beaten that day was an illusion. "Xiao Tao, can you?" I interrupted him. "Aren't you going to explain who this fat woman is? Did you find her behind my mom's back?" Liu Qiang's expression changed, and the fat woman recklessly revealed the truth. Before Liu Qiang married Bai Qian, he was with me. Later, he broke up with me and married Bai Qian, but I found out I was pregnant. From her words, I completely understood what was going on. It turned out that after Liu Qiang learned he had a biological son, he started to think about recognizing his son. That day, he was in a hurry to see his son, which led to the car accident. After the accident, the fat woman found him, saying that their son was about to start dating and wanted a house, so Liu Qiang set his sights on this house. But my stepmother was doing her best, and he couldn't find any fault with her, so he couldn't directly tell her he wanted the house. He thought of a way to get me together with my stepmother, filmed a video, and ruined her reputation, making her leave with nothing. In this way, his biological son would get the house and money, and he would also get rid of me and my stepmother. It was truly a great plan that achieved 3 goals. But he didn't expect that the property management would suddenly come that day and interrupt my good thing with my stepmother. Unwilling to accept this, he had the fat woman buy him some drugs and put them in juice, which led to what happened next. My usually quiet stepmother turned pale with anger when she heard the fat woman boastfully say these things. "Liu Qiang, I have worked hard to support this family, and you actually colluded with others to try to cheat me out of the house. This house is for Xiao Tao, and no one can take it away. If you want to send the video, go ahead. Anyway, the hospital has the diagnosis proof for me and Xiao Tao. You know very well what wrong things you have done." Liu Qiang felt a bit guilty. After all, he had given me and my stepmother that kind of drug, which was also illegal. The situation was clear, and I understood the truth I wanted. My stepmother took my hand and left. She told me not to worry. This house would definitely not go to the fat woman and her son. I didn't care much about the house. It was just that this truth was really painful. Was that blood relationship really so important? However, this incident completely dispelled my worries. I am an adopted son, so what about my relationship with my stepmother? When it was time for school, my stepmother took me back to school and went back to deal with these matters. After staying at school for a few days, my stepmother came back to pick me up again. Because I didn't have my mediation letter, the fat woman's son was arrested, and she quarreled with Liu Qiang every day. Plus, since my stepmother had also left home, the fat woman didn't get the house money, and her son was in jail. She was resentful and didn't bother to take care of Liu Qiang at all. Moreover, she revealed a shocking secret. That young boy was not Liu Qiang's biological son at all. No one was taking care of him, and Liu Qiang was filthy, without even food or drink, having lost all dignity. This big secret became the last straw that broke the camel's back for him. He crazily wanted to rush over and fight the fat woman, but he was no match for her weight. Both sides were angry, and the fat woman flipped over the wheelchair, causing Liu Qiang's head to hit the floor, bleeding everywhere. The fat woman was so scared that she quickly ran away, and Liu Qiang, with the last bit of strength, called my stepmother. By the time my stepmother rushed over, it was too late. Liu Qiang finally regretted before he died, realizing he had hurt the 2 people who loved him the most. He kept apologizing to my stepmother, begging for her forgiveness, and even told her he had hidden a sum of private money. Even those who share a bed have secrets. If he hadn't died, I wouldn't have known he had been guarding against me all along. On the way back, my stepmother said sadly. She found Liu Qiang's private money and realized he had been secretly saving money behind her back as a backup. There was even a divorce agreement in the place where he kept the money. My stepmother deposited the money into my bank account, treating it as Liu Qiang's gift to me, which also fulfilled this father-son relationship. The fat woman was arrested for intentional homicide. My stepmother was hit hard and planned to go on a trip to relax. I also needed to continue my studies. When we parted at the bus station, my stepmother hugged me. "Xiao Tao, you will always be my son. When I come back, we will still be a family." I nodded, determined in my heart that tonight, stepmother, I would make a surprise comeback to repay you.